So if I could go back in time and give myself advice, I think, well, it wouldn't be that much different to the advice that I tend to give people who ask me for it anyway, right? Which is, number one is, especially when you're working with small budgets and, you know, pulling a lot of favors or maybe not being able to pay people full rates and things like that, which is obviously everyone needs to do it to get a start. But the number one rule I always tell people is at any point in the production, if you just treat people like people, then you're probably going to do okay. So it's fine for you to approach a professional crew member and say, look, I know that you usually charge X for your services. We'd really love you on the project, but we can only afford Y. And that's totally fine if that's not good enough for you, and there's no harm, no foul. I wouldn't, there's no expectation and that person, so you're giving them the respect that they've earned through becoming a professional over several years, which is probably why you want to work with them, but not putting any burden of expectation or stress on them for, if they want to say no, then that's fine. That's totally cool, right? There's so many people that I've seen approach pros for their film that get really riled when people say no. It's like, but this is all I've got. And it's like, well, but it's their prerogative to say no. You can only ask. You don't. Do you know what I mean? And that flows through down to even in production on set. Make sure stupid stuff like make sure people are properly fed on set. Like, don't skimp on the food. That's a cardinal sin. If you've got people on set that are barely even getting paid, you can't give them a packet of chips and a Coke for lunch. It just doesn't cut it. And the other one is just, and I kind of touched on before, which is look at your capacity, your resources, and try and turn what could otherwise be perceived as a liability, just turn that into an asset. Like, turn that into your strength. It's like you've got a whole bunch of lower grade camera gear. You can't make something look like a Hollywood blockbuster. Fine, don't try. What can you make with what you have that hits the mark that it's aiming for, and not going to fall short of another higher mark which you're never going to reach. So, that was what we did with the tunnel. I think we kind of nailed that in terms of, Jules and I had a lot of documentary experience. We knew some people, we had some gear, we knew how we could structure this to minimize the amount of money we had to spend on doing it. It was going to be a heavy draw on our time, but we had plenty of that, so that was fine. We structured that film around what we knew we could achieve, and we knew that if we aimed for that, we would knock it out of the park. But if we'd set out to make the tunnel and tried to make it look like The Conjuring, we probably would have fallen way short of that mark.